In Power BI, there is a native cross-filtering functionality in any report. If you click on an item in a chart or map, it automatically filters all other visualizations to this specific item. Unfortunately, cross-filtering charts is not a built-in functionality in Excel. I am Nabil Murad. In this tutorial, I show you how to combine some tools in Excel to simulate this cross-filter chart functionality. So let's dive in. Here is my finished project in which I summarize a huge data set. Let's have a look at the source data first. I click on the Start Worksheet, and here I have a table that shows a date, a region, a manager, a customer, cost of goods sold, and sales. I summarized this data and I ended up creating this very simple interactive dashboard in which I have the sales by region on a column chart. I have the sales by manager in a donut chart, and then I have the sales by customer on a bar chart. I have a dynamic title here at the top, and everything is dynamic. There is a cross-filtering functionality between the column chart, sales by region, and the two other charts. So if I select the North region, then everything updates in the donut chart and in the bar chart, and also the label updates. If I select South, then everything is dynamic. So let's start creating this project from scratch. Here is my start file. You can download the exercise file and follow along by clicking on the link below this video. I start my project by creating 3 pivot tables, and to create a pivot table I select any single cell. There are so many ways of creating a pivot table. I can go to the Insert tab of the ribbon and click on Pivot Table. I can select one of the recommended pivot tables by clicking on Recommended Pivot Tables. I can use the shortcut Alt-N-V. If you are using Microsoft 365, then the shortcut is Alt-N-V-T. Whatever the technique, I'll be creating my pivot table in a new worksheet. Then I accept the default to create it in a new worksheet. I'll be dragging the region to the rows, and I'll be dragging the sales to the values, and I would have created my pivot table. I want to do few things in this pivot table because I'll be copying it and modify it. So the first thing I want to do is to format the numbers. Then I select any number, I right click and select number format. And here I'm going to format as currency and then hit OK. I also want to bring the label and change the layout to a tabular form. I go to the Design tab, and to the left side of the Design tab, Report Layout. I click on Show in Tabular Form. That brings the label here dynamically. Also, in any pivot table, I don't want it, if I modify it, to expand and collapse the column width. Then I'm going to right click and select Pivot Table Options. And from the Pivot Table Options dialog box, I take the check away from Auto Fit Column Width on Update. And then I hit OK. The final thing I want to do is to name the pivot table. Then I go to the Pivot Table Analyze tab, and I'm going to name it by region. Now I can copy this pivot table instead of recreating another pivot table from scratch. Then I select it, I hover over the border, I press the Control key and drag, and I'll be dropping the second version of the pivot table in column E. I repeat for another version. I press Control and drag, and I'll be dropping the third version of the pivot table. For the second pivot table, I want to change it, instead of sales by region, I want to change it to sales by manager. Then I drag the region out, and then I drag the manager instead. And finally, for the last pivot table, I want to make it sales by customer. Then I drag the region out, and I drag the customer instead. I want to name these pivot tables. I go to the middle one, and I name it by manager. And I name the last one by customer. I finished creating the 3 pivot tables. For the second pivot table, sales by manager, I want to add the region to the filter area, and I would have created a filter. Right now it says all. I want to create a dynamic label that will be used for my dashboard. So if I filter the region and I select North region, it will read North region. But if I select multiple regions, I don't want it to read multiple items. I want it to read multiple regions. And the formula is simple. It's an if function. So I'll be typing equal if F1 equals multiple items in double quotation in brackets, then in this case return multiple regions. In double quotes I type multiple regions. Otherwise, combine whatever region in F1 with the text region. Region is preceded by a space to separate it from whatever comes from F1, and that will be my if function. So if I hit OK, here it says all regions. Now I'm going to make a change. Let's say I check the box for select multiple items, take the check away from all. If I select East and then I hit OK, then I have the East region. If I add the North by checking the North as well, now I get multiple regions, and that's fine. I'll be using it for creating a title for my dashboard. I start creating my visualization. For the first pivot table, sales by region, I want to create a column chart and format it. I select any single cell. I use the shortcut Alt F1. In any chart, I want to do few steps. I want to get rid of the filter buttons. I right-click one of the buttons and I select Hide All Field Buttons. I also want to get rid of the legend. I select it and then I hit Delete. I don't want the dimensions of any chart to change. If I change the column width, then I need to change a property. I hit Ctrl+1 to open the Format Chart area. I click on the Properties tab. I expand Properties and I check the box Don't Move or Size with Cells. I also don't want the grid lines. I click on one of them and then I hit Delete. I want to add a nice label here at the top. I'll be naming it Sales by Region. I can format it. I can make it bold. I can make it bigger. I can change the color if I want. The next thing I want to do is to reduce the width between the different columns. Then I click on one of the columns and then I click on the series options. If it is closed, you can open it by hitting Ctrl+1. And then I want to reduce the gap width like this. I can also format the y-axis, the vertical axis. I select it, and then for the axis options, I want to display the units in thousands. Then I select thousands. Also for the data series, I want to give them a more vivid color. Then I go to the Format tab. For the shape outline, I'll be selecting a different grade of blue, and I want to add a shape effect that will make it look like a little embossed. So I click on Shadow, and from the menu I select Inner Shadow, and that looks nice. Let's bring the data labels here at the top. I bring the data labels by clicking on the plus sign and check the box for data labels. I can make them bigger by going to the Home tab. I bump them up and I can bold them. And I'm almost done creating my first visualization. Before copying it to the dashboard worksheet, I want to get rid of the background. I want to get rid of the fill color or the background of this chart and get rid of the outline. Then I go to the Format tab, click on Shape Outline and select No Outline, and Shape Fill and select No Fill. Now I can copy this chart to the destination. Ctrl C, go to the dashboard worksheet and then paste it. Ctrl V. I can resize it later on when I bring the other elements. For sheet 1 where I have the pivot tables, I'm going to name it Preparation, and then I hit Enter. After creating my first visualization or my first column chart, I want to create a donut chart for the sales by manager. I select any single cell. I go to the Insert tab of the ribbon and I click on the down arrow for pie and donut chart. I select the donut chart. And for the donut chart, I'll be making some changes as well. I will hide all field buttons, delete the legend, reduce the donut hole size, and then I'll be resizing the plot area and add some data label. So let's do that. I want to bring the chart title in the middle of the donut, then I drag it, and I want to split it into two lines. I click before the M, I hit Alt, Enter, followed by Enter, then I have it in two lines, and that will look better. Now I want to get rid of the fill color and the outline. I go to the Format tab, and I select Shape Outline, No Outline, Shape Fill, No Fill. And that will be in preparation of moving it to the destination worksheet. My next chart will be a bar chart that will show the sales by customer. So let's create a bar chart. I select any single cell from the third pivot table and I click on the Insert tab. I click on the down arrow for column. I select bar chart. And now I'm going to format it as I did with the previous charts. Hide all field buttons, delete the legend, format the y-axis, and I'll be formatting the data series and reduce the gap. I'll be adding some data labels and format them, and I'll be adding and formatting a title. I finished creating my charts. I can move the donut and the bar chart to the destination worksheet. I click on the border. I press Shift. I click on the second one and then Control C. Go to the dashboard worksheet and position them. I'm going to group them and resize them after I bring my title. Then I go back to the preparation worksheet and I want to refer to I1 where I created my if function to create a dynamic title. That's done by creating a text box. I click on the Insert tab and then I click on Text Box. I click and drag to position the text box. I put my text box in the edit mode by hitting the F2 key. I can see the blinking cursor in the formula bar. I type an equal sign. I can click on cell I1, but the cell reference must be preceded with the worksheet name because we intend to copy this text box to another worksheet. Then I click on the Start worksheet. I see it in the formula bar followed by an exclamation mark. That's not the correct one. I click on Preparation and then I click on I1. Then I hit Enter and I will get the dynamic label that I created in I1. I'm going to copy it and format it in the destination. So I hit Ctrl C to copy the text box and I go to the dashboard and I'll be pasting my label. I want to format it, remove the outline and remove the fill color. So I'll do that. Now after moving and formatting and resizing my donut and bar chart and my title, I want to group them all together. That will enable me to resize them collectively and fine-tune the appearance of my dashboard. Then I click on my donut chart, I press Shift and click on my bar chart, press Shift and click on my text box, and I want to group them all together by going to the shape format, click on the down arrow for group and select group. Now I can resize everything all together the way I want and position them collectively wherever I want. Now we want to start adding the interactivity between the column chart sales by region so that it governs the other charts. I want to create the cross-filtering functionality between the sales by region and the two other visualizations. And to do that, I go to the preparation worksheet, I select the manager worksheet and I create a slicer. I click on the pivot table analyze tab, insert a slicer, and I'll be selecting a slicer for the region, and then I hit OK. Here is my slicer, and this slicer connected to the by manager pivot table, and it will be also reflected on the filter, which will change the title. We want it to govern the other pivot table as well. Then I right click on the slicer and I select report connection. I want to link it to the by customer pivot table. Then I check by customer and then I hit OK. I'll be taking this slicer to the dashboard. Control C to copy it. I go to the dashboard and I'll be pasting in the dashboard. Control V. This slicer needs a lot of changes. Then I right click on the slicer and I select the last option, slicer settings. In the slicer settings, I take the check away from display header and then I hit OK. I want to resize the slicer and create a style. So I'm going to resize it by dragging from the lower right corner. I drag it and make it horizontal. I go to the slicer tab, and on the slicer tab I increase the number of columns and I make it 6. Now I can see the different regions, and now I would like to format this slicer in a way that if I position it on top of the horizontal axis of the line chart, it looks exactly as if this is the category axis. And to do that, I need to create a style before moving it. And to create a style, I select any one of the existing styles, right click and select duplicate. And now I want to give it a name. I'll name it cross filter. For the whole slicer, I want to format it in a way that I don't have a border and I don't have a fill color. I click on border, I select none. For the fill color, no color, and then I hit OK. For the selected item with data, I select it, I format it, I want it to be white. I don't want a border, so I select none. And for the font, I want it bold and I want to make it like 12. And then I hit OK. For the unselected item with data, this one needs to be formatted as well. Then I don't want a border. I set the border to none. And for the fill color, no color. And then I hit OK. And that will be the new style cross filter. Where I hit OK, nothing changes in my slicer because the style is not yet applied. The new style that I created is always the first one. Then I click on cross filter to apply that style. East and north are bold, that means they are selected. Now the challenge is to resize the column chart in a way that when I position the slicer on top of it, it appears as part of the chart. I'm going to drag this one. I'll position it here. I want to resize my column chart. And I can resize my slicer itself. Where I position it in place, it looks as if it is part of the chart. Now let's test the interactivity. If I select the Atlantic region Everything updates, my donut chart updates, my bar chart updates, and my label updates as well. I'll be selecting North and everything looks beautiful and dynamic. Then we created a cross-filter functionality between our main chart, the sales by region, and whatever region I select. Then I have the sales by manager and the sales by customer filtered down to this specific region. When you create such a project, you don't want anyone to modify the design of your dashboard. Then I'm going to apply some protection. Then I click on the Review tab of the ribbon, and here is a very tricky part. If I click on Protect Worksheet and then I hit OK, I won't be able to interact with the slicer anymore. So if I click on North, nothing changes. I click on East, nothing changes because the protection is preventing me from doing this. Then I'm going to set a special option in the protection dialog box. I unprotect the sheet, click on Protect Sheet one more time. And in the protection dialog box, I don't want to select the locked cells. I don't want anyone to select unlocked cells. I go down to the end of the list, edit object. You have to check it. The slicer is an object. And because the slicer is changing in the background, the pivot table, you have to enable that as well. And when I hit OK, I would have applied protection and finished creating my project. My slicer is interactive. There is a cross-filtering functionality. Everything is working fine. When I click on the East region, it's filtering the other charts. When I click on North, it's filtering the other charts as well. But I cannot select or deselect any cells in the worksheet. Everything is protected. And I finished creating my project. If you like this pivot table trick, you can learn hundreds of amazing tips and tricks in pivot tables by reading my book, Pivot Tables From Data to Dashboard. You can get it now. Links are in the description below the video. And if you enjoyed this training video, give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel to be notified when new tutorials are released. The best is yet to come. Thanks for watching and see you next time.